Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Ryan Lockwood, Communications Manager for the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. Thanks for stepping into the arena today and joining us for a conversation to highlight the voices and stories advancing America's legacy of conservation, habitat, and access across the country. At TRCP, we work to guarantee all Americans quality places to hunt and fish by bringing together conservation organizations, decision makers, and passionate individuals like you. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Peter Kaminsky. Peter wrote the Outdoors column for the New York Times for over 3 decades and has been a contributing editor to Field and Stream, Sports Afield, and Outdoor Life. A longtime fly fisherman as well as author, his books include The Moon Pulled Up an Acre of Bass, The Catch of a Lifetime, and his most recent work, The Zen of Fly Fishing. This latest book brings together short essays, inspirational quotes, and some really beautiful photography and paintings centered on his joy for fly fishing. Based in Brooklyn, New York, Peter has traveled the world chasing all sorts of bucket list species, but he also fishes the waters near his home. He's been influential in the ongoing conversation around striped bass conservation based on firsthand knowledge from decades angling in the waters off Long Island and around New York City. So we first met when TRCP featured him in a Q&A last year to share his insights on striped bass conservation on the mid-Atlantic coast. We're excited today to dive into his thoughts on what it means to be a fly angler, how it affects our well-being, and the important role recreational anglers play in the conservation space. Peter, thanks so much for being here. Let's dive right into it.
You bet, Ryan. Good to be here.
So Peter, it's clear from our conversations and from your writing that the sport, or perhaps the art form of fly fishing, has incredible significance in your life. Was there a defining moment that sparked your passion for this endeavor?
Yeah, there was. I was managing editor of the National Lampoon back in the 70s, which was a pretty insane place. There wasn't a lot of fishing and hunting going on there. We were on Madison Avenue, and it was a time of overindulgence. Anyway, I went to the Yucatan because I wanted to go someplace nice in the winter for a vacation. And that was kind of an inexpensive place. And I went on someone's recommendation to a place called Akumal. And now this is almost 50 years ago. And even then I said, this is a little too, upscale resorty for me. And my girlfriend and I drove down the coast past the pyramid of Tulum. And the town of Tulum was a pyramid and a taco stand. And we made a right and we went down this track that said Boca Pila, mouth of the kettle, and ended up at Boca Pila Fishing Lodge. And the guy, Tony Gonzalez, invited us in. We had grilled rock lobster and some tequila with grapefruit juice. And I went out and fished for the afternoon with a spinning rod and live shrimp. Caught a couple of bonefish, my first bonefish. And then I saw these old guys, old American guys, like old, I mean 50 years old, maybe. Doesn't seem so old to me now. And they were fly fishing. And, it was just like, when Tony sees Maria in West Side Story, or like the first time you ate ice cream, I said, yeah, I don't know why, it just captivated me. So I came back to New York, and I had a friend, Jeff Norman, a great outdoor, just a great writer in general. He was at Esquire magazine, and we went up to the Beaver Kill, me and Jeff, his wife Marcia, and Lee Eisenberg, who's the editor of Esquire at the time, also new to fly fishing. And I saw a guy fishing by, the abutment to a bridge, which is where people customarily fish. And he sent out just a laser, 70 feet maybe, and hooked a fish right with trout, right where it should be. And I was very impressed. Struck up a conversation with him when he came across the bridge. Turned out he was Doug Swisher, a very famous fly angler. He wrote Selective Trout with Carl Richards. and he was given a casting clinic that weekend. I took it, and I never looked back. And so that's it. I got excused from my job at Lampoon, as one does in jobs. And so I just started to write about fly fishing, and was lucky enough to land in outdoor life. And that just began it all.
That's quite an introduction you had to fly fishing. I can understand why it hooked you, pardon the pun. But in my introduction to tequila and grapefruit juice was also in Mexico with some people we met there, and it's actually a dangerous combination. But so Peter, what about fly fishing is most important to you, or what about fly fishing has given back to you the most?
Well, I was every so often you remember something you've written, and you go, "Good Lord, how did I write that?" Because I couldn't, it doesn't seem like it'd be difficult for me to just say it off the top of my head, although I wrote it off the top of my head. But let me just find it here. It's in the beginning of the book, of this book here, which you'll probably see.
I've got a copy too.
And it said, so although I've never considered myself a spiritual person, for the first time in my life, I felt a spirit come over me. That's when I saw those guys fishing. It was, in the words of the hymn Amazing Grace, the hour I first believed. From that day to this, my life has found its center. Fly fishing has been the thing that I return to in the rough times that are part of living, but more wonderfully, it has always enriched me in the happiest times. It has been the foundation of friendships, a measure of the forbearance of my wife, a bond with my children, a source of adventure, and an ever more profound connection with our green and blue planet. So that's what it does for me, and continues to.
It sounds like an inspiration, yeah. And yeah, for our viewers, here's a copy of Peter's new book, The Zen of Fly Fishing. It's really captivating prose, fantastic photography in there, Peter. The book really delves into the benefits of fly fishing beyond the activity itself, or the chance to put dinner on the table. So let's talk a little about the spiritual or healing benefits of fly fishing, kind of what you related to there. They're similar to the benefits we all experience from other forms of fishing, hunting, outdoor recreation, just anything that gets us in touch with nature. How has being on the water, rod in hand, helped you out in a deeper sense?
Well, I explain it as taking me outside of time. I think there's two ways we experience time in the world. One is every day, which is there's a little metronome, every second's passing, time's passing. And then when you fly fish, you're like in a different world, a different way of reckoning time. In fact, not reckoning it. It's as if time stops. And I've said and believe I can remember minutes of fly fishing. I've experienced fly fishing better than whole years of my life, if you ask me. And it's just a very, it's a peaceful, transcendent thing. Now, is it the only thing that can do that for people? No. Meditation, golf, knitting. I'm that way with cooking. When I'm cooking something, I just check out until I'm done cooking. And the point is, once you're done, you could have been doing it for a whole day. You could have been fishing, 8-10 hours, which I've done plenty. And then when you're done, it's like a second has passed. It's like waking from dreams. And it's a very restorative feeling. It also, I guess, certain people describe that as what prayer does for them. I guess it's my way of getting there. But it just makes me feel whole and connected and not all jangly nerves, which modern life can do. I will say I would not stand in a stream waving a stick in the air if there wasn't the occasional hookup. I mean, I love the chill. I love the thrill. I mean, if put it quite simply. But there are plenty of thrilling things you can do that just don't put you in touch with yourself and the world quite as well as fly fishing does for me.
This may be a little personal, but would you mind sharing a specific example of how fly fishing has helped you through difficult times to help, maybe to heal from or deal with life's difficulties?
Sure. Well, I mean, any number. When things get tough, I fish. But many years ago, I
That's a
broke.
bumper sticker.
Sorry?
That should be a bumper sticker.
Yeah. Many years ago, I was crashing out of a 10-year relationship, and I discovered what the term clinical depression meant. It described me at the time. And I went up to Sun Valley, Idaho, where I had some friends, where I had fished. I was living in LA at the time. And I slept on a cot, I think it was a cot, maybe it was an inflatable mattress, in the garage of a photographer, great photographer, Andy Kent, sort of in his garage next to his motorcycle, and cry myself to sleep every night. And then I drive down to Silver Creek, about a 30-minute drive, and I fish all day. And I felt just great all day. The blues lifted. So, one, it was a wonderful experience, angling experience in and of itself. But two, it kind of showed me, well, you don't have to feel miserable all the time. There's definitely, a sunny side. So that's what it's done for me. I've come through some serious health crises, and then I get on the water and I go, all right, well, this is pretty good. It's just the spoonful of medicine that I need and works for me in heavy doses.
Yeah, well, and thank you for sharing that. It sounds like, yeah, I mean, it's been so profound for you, like it is for so many people, and we appreciate you sharing something that personal. So, from your book, the most recent book, and other books, it's clear you fished all over, right? From fishing cold water trout out west to Dorado in South America to salmon in Iceland. I know you've also pursued fish in areas where TRCP focused some of our fisheries conservation efforts. So like largemouth bass and tarpon in the Everglades, where we work with partners on long-term restoration efforts. Striped bass in the Atlantic, where we focus our conservation efforts centered on there not being enough menhaden in the Chesapeake Bay as a vital food source for striped bass and other sport fish. But it's clear you've thoroughly enjoyed going after all sorts of species all over the place. But what's your favorite quarry and why?
Well, that's like what's your favorite kid?
Yeah.
For sure, brown trout rising to a dry fly. That's the heart of the game. A bonefish on the flats. There's something very hunterly about it, and blasted with light, and just the immensity of the environment you're in at that time. And there's nothing quite like a bass blitz in the fall. It's just the birds are going. Well, here's the deal. That's how I came to write The Moon Pulled Up an Acre of Bass. I was hunting for pheasant on the east end of Long Island. And we were pushing through this field that went up against dunes that overlooked the Atlantic. And we were chasing a couple of pheasant. I can't truly remember if we got them or not, but we crested the dune, and I looked out, and there was like a mile of ducks or geese flying south, monarch butterflies, the water frothing with right next to shore with striped bass, who'd penned up some rain bait, I believe, or bay anchovies. And I just said, nature is rioting. And I felt one couldn't feel more alive or connected to the world or invigorated than I did at that moment. So that's kind of where my dedication to stripers in the fall and now in the spring. I mean, I love them on the flats in the summer, but there's something about a blitz that just turns on the primeval organism inside you.
That's such a fantastic visual you painted for the east end of Long Island there. I never thought about upland bird hunting on Long Island, but then the striper blitz in particular, something I haven't had a chance to experience myself, but I definitely have that on my bucket list. But let's talk a little bit more about striped bass. In our last interview, you talked about the challenges facing striper populations in the Atlantic and how that's changed your mindset about how anglers need to approach the situation. So, for listeners who aren't aware, striped bass, which are one of America's most commercially important fish, are considered overfished and have seen consecutive years of very low spawning success in the Chesapeake Bay, which is their primary spawning area. Stripers also are dealing with lower numbers of menhaden, at least in particular areas. And that's a bait fish that's an important food source. And so TRCP has been advocating to fund science to explore this further. But Peter, how have things changed over the years with striped bass? And how have those changes impact the way that you approach striper fishing?
Well, the way it changed, it's for as long as I've been doing it, it's been a catch and release fishery. Pretty much a catch and release fishery. Although in my earlier years, because I'm also a cookbook writer, I got a pass. I kept one a year. I don't do that anymore. I suppose it wouldn't amount to much in the big scheme of things, but I don't know if this is the current number, but it was true a year or two ago. 90% of the mortality of our population around Long Island, which is 120 miles long, and some millions of fish, 90% of the mortality was attributable to recreational anglers. Now, the overwhelmingly large percentage of that is from charter boats, either head boats or 5-6 anglers with the charter captain who just fill up their boats with bass, or even they're keeping the legal limit. It's not limitless out there, and that's really put a dent in it. So that's one part of the story. It's mystifying to try and keep track of. By that I mean the numbers from Chesapeake, which also is a 90% place, as in 90% of our Northeast population traditionally comes from there. Although recruitment of the young of the year has been way off in the Chesapeake, in part because of menhaden harvesting, in part because of agricultural runoff, and in part because of overfishing. Although that's the case, we've had such huge numbers of huge bass that people have been catching from my area all the way up into New England. Right. So it kind of masks an underlying problem. It's a real bonanza. So nature does have a way of evening things out. But it seems that we're not letting her have a chance to do that, is what I would say. Now, I've seen other times when things look horrible, like before the moratorium of 1986. And then lo and behold, the minute they lifted it, we were all catching 36-inch bass, to beat the band. So populations do come back, but they need a chance to come back. They need a place to spawn. They need habitat, they need food. And they need safety for their numbers. So I think more people, I know more people are conservation minded, but one never knows if that's enough. I mean, the Chesapeake beats at the heart of the game.
Well, yeah, and you bring up a really valid point that having a number of large bass that people are catching can mask this issue, which is happening that they're not seeing, which is that lower spawning success, which is something that down the road we'll run into if we don't manage properly. And Peter, you brought up what you referred to as that sacramental fish, that you would keep one fish traditionally each season to bring home for the dinner table, which I believe that you've elected not to do anymore because of the worsening situation with striped bass. But on that larger decision to elect for catch and release, so all of us anglers have our own philosophies about whether to always catch and release, always seek the ultimate grip and grin, or always endeavor to bring home a cooler full of fish for the dinner table. So to eat or not to eat, right? There's two different camps here, though many anglers do a little bit of both. How do you feel about the angler's decision to release, or perhaps more importantly, not release a fish they've caught?
Well, to me, it's purely a conservation thing. I have an essay in this book. I forget what it's called. Maybe it's called The Pursuit of Happiness, where I talk about, in our American way of being holier than thou, we tend to get, if we're catch and release anglers, tend to get really sanctimonious about it. Let me just deal with my allergies here.
I can relate.
And it's not about that at all. Everything gets eaten in this world. It's just a question of who's eating it and when. So there's no question that one of the primal levers that moves us to fish is the pursuit of food. That's where it comes from. And when we're successful at it, it gives us joy, because it gives us joy to be successful at food gathering. Now, modern life is a bit removed from that necessity, but that's fundamentally where it comes from. So I get it. If you could release birds or deer that you shot, I suppose that'd be a good thing. That's not possible, but you can release a fish. And the thing about fish is we somewhat mistakenly or without information assume there are lots of them out there because they're under the water. And if there's 2 fish, maybe you think there's 1,000, but it's limited. It's as limited. Just imagine that it were a plane like the Serengeti. How many fish are there? And it's not infinite. So especially predator fish, like a top predator, like a trout, it doesn't take a whole lot to degrade a trout fishery. There are far fewer trout than there are bait fish. So it's a good thing to give them back. I don't think it's bad to kill trout. I think it's bad to degrade the fishery to the point where there is no fishery. So I'll tell you a story if you got a sec.
Absolutely.
About all that. I was in Argentina. It's maybe my second trip. And a group of American anglers. Our guide was Bob White, who people may be familiar with. Bob as a wildlife artist. Among other things, he drew the companion piece to John Garrex's column in Rod and Reel and then in Trout, and illustrated covers to his book. Anyway, Bob's become a friend, but back then we just met each other, and we were fishing a famous place called the Boca of the Chimehuin in Argentina. There's this lake, and it opens up at the end. It spills into a river, and huge, I mean, like 20, 25 pound up to brown trout come ready to spawn in the fall. Wow. And we were fishing there. And right downstream of us was a famous angler named Charles Radziwill, a Lithuanian Polish prince. And he fished with the legendary Charles Ritz and Baby Anchorena and Billy Pate and Joe Brooks and Kurt Gowdy. So he was down there fishing, great caster, lefty, could throw out the whole line. So Bob's up by the boca where the fish entering. He's got dry fly on, and he hooks a really nice brown trout. As I recall, it was like 13 pounds. And he's pulling it in. Great angler. Charlie being sort of like the king of the hill there, is telling him how to play it, which Bob knows very well, but being courteous, he goes, okay, thank you. And then as it gets close, Charlie picks it up by the gills, and all my American friends are just shocked beyond words that he's done that. I mean, the trout, blood spurts, trout's gone, becomes dinner. This is a good act, just killing one trout. So you have to keep these things in balance and not to get too up on yourself about catch and release. It's a good practice. It's a good conservation practice. It leaves fish for others to catch after you. And I like to leave it at that.
Yeah, it's that's an interesting story, and yeah, the management needs to dictate whether we need to catch and release. But if it's if the fishery's healthy, yeah, it's really just a personal decision. So this is a bit of an aside, but you recently mentioned to me how you've also written some about Theodore Roosevelt's uncle, the conservationist and politician Robert Barnhill Roosevelt, who was apparently quite a figure. And it sounds like he influenced his nephew's desire to focus on conservation. So based on my organization's name, I'd be remiss to not ask you to tell us a little bit more about TR's uncle and your writings on him. Would you mind sharing a little bit on that?
Sure. Well, I just happen to have, he was the first fish commissioner of the state of New York. And he probably go to jail for this today, but he brought brown trout, an exotic species, to the east. He established shad and stripers on the west coast, and he brought largemouth east of the Alleghenies, largemouth and smallmouth. Well, no, did smallmouth originally come up from up in Maine as well? I believe they do, but in lower states.
Sure.
So you all may know. Can you see those? Whoa! This series. This is the 1895.
Oh yeah, look at that.
He commissioned the famous Denton Prince that we all know. So he was the Roosevelt family. They were in the hardware business, and they weren't like old Dutch aristocrats. The original guy here was a sign painter, but Barnhill and TR's dad, Thaddeus, they had a hardware store down on Maiden Lane. And as I understand, they made their money from a contract to supply brooms to the Union Army, and they did well. So Barnhill loved to fish and hunt. He trout fished in Manhattan and in the Bronx. I think once he went like a little bit upstate because his wife was about to deliver a baby, but he figured he needed to go fish. Anyway, he taught Teddy how to fish and hunt, and inculcated in him, the spirit of conservation. He also had two wives at the same time on 20th Street in Manhattan, which kind of caused him to be read out of family gatherings. But his first wife was crazy. So anyway, that's who he was. And he was a great conservationist. So many of our fishing game, or DNRs or DEPs, originally came after the Civil War, when guys, sort of upper class guys like Barnhill, started these fishing game commissions and started game censuses and conservation practices. And I mean, that's certainly who helped reestablish the bison. That was the Wildlife Conservation Society, the Bronx Zoo in New York. They're the ones who originally funded the Lamar Buffalo Ranch in Yellowstone. So it was their love of hunting and fishing that really, in a very practical sense, spurred their initial efforts at conservation, and we owe a lot to them.
That's That's fascinating. And I had no idea that Theodore Roosevelt's uncle had such a major role in conservation as well. So a broader question now, though. So as we consider Theodore Roosevelt and his uncle Barnhill, and think about their conservation legacies, why is it important for you and for other anglers to be involved in conservation?
Well, the short personal benefit answer is so we can continue to fish and hunt with any hope of success. But I guess, no doubt, the larger one is, we're at home on this planet. And something that keeps it being green and bountiful and home makes us feel better. It's good to feel better. And it makes us feel better because our success as a species ultimately depends on that. So, it's I try and stay away from moralizing, but there's no question that a healthy planet, abounding in species, is where we're meant to be. We're meant to be home, and we're, of course, increasingly going away from that. And we'll see if long term our number comes up.
Yeah. We all benefit from conservation, right? It's a little bit of self-interest, if nothing else. So there's one more question I have to ask. With you being a person who's gotten so much out of fly fishing and who himself found it later in life on his own, what advice would you give to someone who's never fly fished, maybe just never gotten around to it, but wonders if it might be for them?
Casting lessons. Casting lessons. Because the thing that, excuse me, the hump to get over is, it's especially guys, who grew up throwing baseballs, is to just get that line out there. And the 2 days I spent with Swisher, learning how to haul, learning a cast, learning a back cast, and learning a reach cast were just invaluable. It meant the next time I went, I could get 20 feet of line out there, with a leader at the end, and start to catch fish. And then the more you do it, you'll get better. I practiced casting so much when I started. I used to go out to Prospect Park in Brooklyn and just cast away, for hours. There's a story I have in the book. It's called The Red Wine Cast. So it's amazing. I'm with my daughter. She's 20, my younger daughter. And she really wanted to get into fly fishing and learn something about it. My older daughter had. So we, and then I was invited to go fish in New Brunswick for salmon. It was way hot. There weren't any salmon. So it was a good place for Lily to get her casting together. And we stayed at a place called Ponds Resort on the Miramichi. It was the second place we stayed. And there was a woman there, Marsha Ponds, I think her name was at the time. And she instructed women's classes, particularly. That was one thing, like the Dame Juliana Fly Fishers. And so what she used to do was take a long-stemmed wine glass and fill it with a 5-ounce pour of red wine. And she would put on Mel Carter, right, singing, "Hold me, thrill me, never let me go." And she put it on a cassette player, and all her students would stand there with their thumb up on the glass. And you had to do it in time, hold me, and not spill any wine. Well, that's the right power stroke for a cast. And if you can do it and not spill any wine, you're going to catch fish. So anyway, that's my advice. So is seek out someone who knows what they're doing, and seek out someone who's got the patience to teach you. And if there is a casting clinic wherever you are, do it. it's not all the money in the world, and the investment will pay off.
I would spill a lot of wine based on a little bit of recent casting instruction I got. Peter, thank you. It's been insightful talking to you once again. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us, your experiences. Your works continue to inspire anglers everywhere. In the spirit of being on the water, rod in hand, and caring about conservation.
Well, you're very welcome. The book, of course, is, there we go. Can you see it? You can see it.
We can see it. It's a great book.
And I got to write things just from the heart that, I wasn't making a deadline or having to write about what someone needed to be timely, just things I've thought about this sport.
Well, thank you again, Peter.
Ryan.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wish you guys just the best. You're doing the angels' work.
Thank you, Peter. I work with a great team at TRCP. And thank you to everyone for watching today. Be sure to check out Peter's new book. I'm going to show it one more time here, The Zen of Fly Fishing. It's available at prominent booksellers online, makes a great gift. And if you'd like to learn more about striped bass, marine conservation, and other areas we focus on at the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, be sure to check out the links in the description below. At TRCP, we believe that conservation works best when we work together. So if you're passionate about protecting our outdoor traditions, whether it's fishing, hunting, or simply spending time on public lands and waters, we invite you to connect with us at trcp.org and follow us on social media. Thanks for tuning in, and keep an eye out for more conversations with the people shaping the future of conservation. Until next time, I'm Ryan Lockwood, and we'll see you in the arena.